Hello everyone. Hello, thanks very much for joining us today. So, welcome to today's Azure Administrator live study session series. So, today we have something special, or rather, we have someone special. And I'm super excited about this because if you have a quick look at his background, you can tell exactly why, why I'm excited about this. So, hello, Ibrahima. How are you doing? How are you doing today?
I'm fine, and you?
Yeah, doing good. Thanks. So, Ibrahim, we've known each other in the community for a while now. You're one of those people that have been just contributing a lot to the community in the background. You've done a lot, just helping out with questions and tons of questions that people come up with stuff. Like, how many Azure certifications do you have now? You probably have about 50 or something now.
Oh, I don't know exactly, but let's say more than 7 or 8.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. And you're based in France, right? I believe.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about you, like your role? What do you currently do?
Actually, I'm working as an architect. I'm designing some scalable, secure, and high available architecture for our clients. So
Mm,
we are gold partner on Microsoft.
mm,
We are working mainly on Azure and Microsoft 365.
mm.
So personally, I'm working with tools like Azure DevOps and infrastructure as code like Terraform.
Mm.
And I'm also working on the cloud adoption framework and the Azure well architected framework.
Nice, man. That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff. I know. That's
Yes.
why. That's why I'm super excited about this. I think this is going to be awesome. So, what we're going to be covering today? So, you have some things for us to discuss today.
Yes, we will talk about
I can tell that someone is excited about Azure. It's
yes.
like,
Sorry for the background noise. It's kids, so I cannot.
hey, it's
So
just trying to learn programming. That's what they're trying to do.
yes, okay. So we will talk about the storage account, blob storage, storage security, Azure files and file sync, and how to manage storage. And I will also do some demo directly in the portal.
Awesome. And I guess so. What we're covering, so this aligns with the Azure Administrator certification objectives.
Yes, this is the official course. In fact,
Wow.
for the as I'm MCT and Microsoft waive the fees for the MCT, so I am doing some some
Awesome.
good stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'll just hand over to you, Ibrahima. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any question, please put them in the chat window for Ibrahima. You know how we do it. This is a live study session. So take advantage of that. Ask your questions live, and Ibrahima will be happy to answer that. So I'll just let you carry on, and then I'll come on if there's any questions.
Yes, so let's get started. So we will talk about the storage account services, the kind, the replication strategies, how to access storage, the endpoints, and we'll end with the demo with the how to secure a storage endpoint. So basically, the storage is a service that you can use for storing files, messages, tables, and other type of information. In fact, it's a massive and scalable service in Azure. So you can manage multiple storage accounts and have a different kind of a storage account. So you can store like virtual machines, unstructured data, structured data. You can also use the cheapest service like HDD. You can also use high performance storage like premium storage and solid state drives like SSD. Um, so Basically, you have four services, four main services. You have something like containers, which is a massively scalable object store for text and binary data. You have Azure Files, in case you have to manage file share for cloud or on-premise deployment. Think about cloud sync, think about replacing file share or extending your file shares, your legacy file shares in cloud. You can have also Azure Tables, which is a NoSQL store for schemaless storage and structured data. And finally, you can have also Azure Queues, which is a messaging store for reliable messaging between application components. So, which is interesting is you can have many level and many kind of storage account. Basically, what is recommended is to use the storage V2 because storage V1 was the first version of storage. Now Microsoft moved to storage V2. The supported services is blob for blob storage. In fact, when you create a storage account, you have the choice to go with only blob. So if you need only blob, you can go for blob storage, but you need to know that the supported tier, for example, you want to have premium performance. You cannot have premium performance when you choose, for example, blob storage. You need at least to have storage V1. But as I said, you need to move from V1 to V2. So giving this matrix, you need to know that if you have storage V2, you have the maximum of capacity and the use of the maximum premium performance that you can have. So if you have also file storage only, you can go with that, but you need to know that you can't have other services like a queue, like a table, like a disk, like a blob. So you can have also related to your storage account type the different replication options. Replication option means that you have some prerequisite or requirement regarding your high availability and your disaster recovery requirement. For example, I will go for locally redundant storage if I have no need to replicate to another region or another zone. For example, I will go at least for GRS if my requirement is to have at least a replica to another region, etc., etc. So you need to know all of this and know also what can be done with which kind of storage and what is limited regarding the services, regarding the tiers, and regarding the replication options. So regarding the replication option, you can have, so as I said, locally redundant storage. It means that the data is replicated 3 times within a single facility in a single region. So if it is your requirement, you can go for it. But if you need to at least replicate to another zone, so for example, for disaster recovery purposes, you need to move for zone redundant storage. That means that your data is replicated 3 times across 2 to 3 facilities, either within a single region or across 2 regions, because you may know that one region can have one or two or three zones. So if your requirement is to replicate to another region, go with GRS, because you will have your data replicated three times within the primary region, and replicate three times to the region pair. So for example, I have some storage account in West Europe, and if I go for GRS, I will have my storage account, my data replicate three times in West Europe and three times in North Europe. Then you have some with replica with RA GRS, and also you can have more flexibility and more redundancy options with GZRS and RAGZRS. So basically, what is what it do is replicate across availability zones, and let you have a read replica of your data.
Hello, Ivaima. So we have a question for you live here. So I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and put the question here and I'll read it out. So Vishal
Mm.
asked, is there any specific logical or technical reason to replicate data three times?
I think it's a matter of redundancy options, because you can have generally speaking, when you have three times the data, it's on different hosts and different storage. So for example, in a data center, you can have three physical machine. So you will not took the data and put it on one host. You will spread across multiple hosts.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that.
No problem. I don't know if it's clear, but tell me if it's.
I think it's very, very clear. Yeah, thank you.
So you need to know also, it's the storage account is a DNS, it's a DNS based service, because you will have some CNAME records. You will also need to have, that's why you need to have a unique name for the storage account, because for example, if you have some storage account like test.blob.core.windows.net, you are sure that someone already took it, and you need to have a unique DNS name for the storage. So for the storage, for the container services, you will have this pattern: my storage account at blob.core.windows.net. For table, it's the name of the storage account, that table.core.windows.net, and so on for queue and file. This is the default one, but as you can see, you can map your custom domain by using a CNAME record. So you can map your domain instead of using the default endpoint. So now, how to secure your storage account? When you create your storage account, by default, as many services in Azure, it's public, you know. So you need to have some mechanism to secure it, especially if you have some sensitivity data in sensitive data in the storage account. So let's go to the portal directly, so I can show you. So Okay, so let's take a storage account. So I've mentioned, you have containers, you have files, you have queues, you have table, you have the security and networking. And the first aspect that you can need to secure is the networking, because the networking is the uh, first attack surface, because when you create your storage account, it can be accessed from all networks. So what you can do is use your virtual networks. So as you can see, you can add an existing virtual network. You also can add a new virtual network. So at least if you cannot make it private, you need to add your public IP from your ISP. Also, you can specify what kind of resources, for example, in the instance name that can access your storage account. But at least if you cannot make it fully private, at least put your client IP address here, so it's not completely accessible to the entire world. If you can make it private, you probably use the private endpoint. The private endpoint is basically your way to secure your past services, because it allow you to make your past services um, mm, completely private, as your private endpoint, the IP of the private endpoint will come from your virtual network. So you will probably design a virtual network, create a virtual network, and create a subnet. So, for example, you can create a subnet for the private endpoint. So, from the private endpoint, you can hide the accessibility to your storage account to the entire world. So, this is the first part. Now, you need also to see the encryptions. So sometimes the Microsoft Managed Keys, uh, you can be okay with that, but for regulatory compliance, you may need, for example, to use custom managed key. But you need to know that the infrastructure encryption by default, the storage accounts are encrypted at rest, at least for with Microsoft Managed Keys.
Yep. So, Ibrahima, we have another question here for you. Like,
Mhm.
so let me put that on there. So we have Adiojo Boyega asking, what does the allow trusted Microsoft services to access this storage account? What does that mean?
The Microsoft services, is other services. For example, you may need a keyboard, you may need a virtual machine that use the storage account. You can have many services that can use the storage account. If you deny that, those services cannot access the storage account.
Yes. Thanks very much for that.
No problem. So for the shared access signature, the use case is when, for example, you need to send when someone, for example, need to use one part of your storage account, like a file, like a blob, like a queue. You may not, you should not clearly give him or her the access keys, because the access key will give access to all the storage account, and not only blob, not only file and kind of stuff. So what you can do at least is generate a shared access signature, define the allowed services, define the allowed type. For example, I want to share a container, for example, I will choose the container. I set the time, allow the protocol. For example, for security purposes, you may have HTTPS only, and choose the signing key, and for example generate the SAS token, and the SAS token will allow the person to access one particular container, or one particular part of the blob storage. So you can see your storage account key here. So the best practice is when you have some services using the storage account key. Sometimes you need to regenerate the key. You can regenerate, rotate the keys, so you will have more secure storage account.
Yep. Hello again, Ibrahima. So another
Yeah.
question just came in now. So, and I
Mhm.
think that the question is a follow-up question to the last one. So Adia Jogboiga is asking, okay, so in essence, they use Microsoft Backbone, I guess, talking about the trusted services.
Yes.
It says since the cloud is multi-tenant, how do
Yeah.
we ensure that only our services can connect to the storage accounts?
Since the cloud is only our.
So, since the cloud is multi-tenant, how do we ensure that only our services can connect to the storage account?
So only your services you can use your private endpoint, and but it still use the Microsoft backbone. So if you don't want to someone access your storage account from the public, I guess it's the question, if I'm understanding well. But the only way, the most secure way currently, as I know, is the private link, so the private endpoint, so you can hide your storage account from the public. But you will need to deal with DNS, because you will need a virtual private network. You will need the VPN to access the storage account, and you will need the DNS to map your storage. You will need a private DNS zone. That's I've implemented the this kind of pattern for storage account, for SQL database, and for Key Vault. What is difficult to implement is you will need a VPN, because if you use those storage, if you use the private endpoint, only the resources inside the VNet can access the storage account.
Yeah.
So no one
Thank,
can access outside.
yeah. Thanks very much for that. I appreciate it. I'll try not to interrupt you for a while. I'll let you carry on. We'll talk.
No problem. So you can have also your security. The security, essentially, is as you tender for storage. So you can enable it, and you can have something like advanced threat protection on your storage account, so it can give you some recommendations. For example, like I said, storage account should use a private link connection, so use private endpoint. At least if you cannot do that, you can use the virtual network rules, and deny the public access. So uh, you can see that you will pay some dollars for 10,000 transaction in bulk container in file shares. So you will have also the alert in Security Center that you can also use for Azure Sentinel to detect the abnormal use for your storage account. For example, someone are deleting a huge amount of data. For example, you will have an alert, but you can reduce already the attack surface when you creating some security mechanism like a private endpoint to avoid having someone from the public attacking your storage. So let me see in my slide what I have already covered. So what you can do, so for example, to secure your storage account also is service endpoint, but the service endpoint still is still public, even if your resources in your subnet can access, but the records are public. So personally, I use a private endpoint instead of service endpoint. But at least if you cannot use for private endpoint, you can go for service endpoint. So as we mentioned, you can use many type of data like structured data, unstructured data, etc. So blob is stand for binary large object. So you can use images, you can use document, you can also use with your application. For example, you can store your data for streaming video or for audio. For example, you can store backup data. You have some integration like for example Vim backup and replication. So I already implemented something like a scale out repository with a blob storage. Donc basically, the client is backup is data locally, but it sends the archive data to the cloud. So typically, you can go. Let me go to the portal. So you go here, you create your container, you name your container. So set to group, for example. You have the access level, so always use private as you can. In the advanced tab, you can use the encryption scope. Now I don't have customer managed key, so I don't have another encryption scope. So I create my container, and you can use also Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer to access your storage account, do some transaction like uploading files, like deleting moving files, etc., etc. So as I mentioned, you can use directly, for example, think about having a container with many files. You can generate a shared access signature and give give to your team to access only these container that I've created. So you make sure that your the different people cannot access other part of the storage account. If you need cache, you can use your the Azure Content Delivery Network. For example, you can use it for a static website, for example, and that will need to have some kind of plan. Can have the link for the pricing tier, and you also need a CDN endpoint name. So now let's talk about the data management. The first part is the geo replication. So as I've mentioned, the geo replication is determined by the initial configuration. So for example, if you go with the locally redundant storage, you cannot replicate to another region because it's only for one region and one data center. So to have your storage account properly configured, you will need to review all the scenario, all the requirements before creating your storage account. So you will not have some kind of a surprise if you need to enable one or two options. For the data protection part, you have the ability to track your data by enabling versioning, enabling blockchain feed. So be you will be alerted if someone, for example, change the behavior or the data. You can enable versioning in case of someone delete one part of data, accidental deletion or corruption or modifying something like also you can have the recovery options, the soft delete for blob, for example. You have I think 14 days to recover your deleted blob. Same for containers. You can also use the point in time restore for containers if you want to recover from one specific time. And you can also enable the operational backup, which is a new feature, and it's really awesome because some of the clients implement blob storage but don't have the ability to create backup because there is no such feature. Now it's okay. You can use operational backup. It's fully managed. You just need to specify the maximum restore points. You can, in addition to that, enable soft delete, but you are okay if your storage account, for example, is deleted because you still have backup. And as the replication is not backup, you can be more flexibility and carry out your storage.
So I have another question. I just came in right now. So the question is from Okwayemi Steven.
Mhm.
So it says, if the custom domain is configured, will it still carry the table core or blob core?
It will create all the services because if you map your domain, let's say, where is the slide? Let me retrieve. Uh, So if you map your domain, it will just change this. For example, you will need your CNAME records, and you can use all the services. So you will have something like Contoso or blob or my storage account that blob.contoso.com. You can have my storage account that table.contoso.com, etc., etc. So it's for all services. Just to put the right records. Is it okay?
Yes, I was in background. Yeah. So okay. Thanks, Ibrahima.
No, no problem. So for the object replication, it's basically a matter of rules. So you put your replication rules, and you need to have the a destination storage account. For example, here, so you select your container here. I think I have also yes, and you save and apply. And what it does is it replicates the object from one storage account to another storage account. So your storage account can be another region, etc., etc. But you just need to set up the right rules to replicate your object. So the blob inventory, basically it's a kind of inventory of all the blob in your storage account. So it's not something specific to I don't know how to say, but you can configure just your inventory to have all the list of your blob. This feature is also interesting to host your static website. You can use it, for example, to host your resume, your blog, etc., etc. And the life cycle management also is an interesting feature because what you can do is for example, let me create a new rule for blob on the name, some demo, click next. So, for example, you have some rules. You say, for example, if the base blob was last modified more than, for example, 14 days, then you can move to cold storage, so to a cheaper storage, move to archive storage, or simply delete the blob. For example, if you have a backup, for example, it can be interesting because, for example, you have a backup that can need to be retained for 1 year, but if you have more than 1 year, it can be either move to archive storage, either move to either be deleted to save some money. Now, what is interesting, so you can use many if-then block. What is the use case? For example, you don't want to delete it now. you want, for example, to move to archive storage first and put, for example, another amount of days, and then after this period, you can now delete it. So you can add many if then block based on your requirements, but the main purpose is to be able to have your hot tier in a period of time, then move it to a cheaper storage like a pool, then move it to a archive storage, and finally delete it after another period of time. So is it something clear?
Very, very clear, Ibrahima. So there's a lot of engagement, there's a lot of questions coming in for you. People want
Yeah.
you to clarify a few things for them. So there's this question that came in from Varun. So Varun
Mhm.
asked, is this replication synchronized? So I guess the question is about if after the replication starts the first time, does it keep it synchronized or is it just one and done?
It's a matter of second, the replication. You uh, I will not say that it's a real time, but it's more than synchronous than asynchronous. So you can have a very short period, a matter of second, to have your data replicated.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that. I'll let you carry on.
So let's now see the configuration. So as you can see, if you already choose your performance tier, you will not be able to move from standard to premium, for example. You will need to delete the storage account you create the new one. So the best practice is to ensure that you have all the requirements regarding the performance requirements, the replication or the availability requirements, and the disaster recovery requirements. Once we have done that, all the other services or all the other options can be modified. But those the performance tier and some application option cannot be modified once the storage account is created. So the as I mentioned, the secret transfer is enabled by default, and it's not recommended to try to decrease the security options. So of course you can disable the public access if you configure your blog to be private. The minimum TLS version, the recommended is 1.2. But if you have legacy application that doesn't support the 1.2, you can use 1.1 or 1.0. But it's not really recommended because those protocols are less secure than 1.2. The blob access tier. So if you have data that access need to be accessed frequently, you need to have the hot tier, but it's not accessed frequently. You can go for cool, and for archiving purpose, you will need to have some life cycle management policies to go with the archive, or create a storage account directly and configure the archive. You can also modify some replication option, but depending on what option you choose, for the first time you will have less flexibility. So the more secure way is to have your requirement ready and do the first good configuration, the right configuration. If you have large file shares like 100 terabyte, for example, or less or more, you can enable file shares. For some services like Windows Virtual Desktop, you can use your identity-based access for file share. For example, you can enable the Active Directory domain services to join the storage account. You can also use Azure Active Directory domain services, enable it. For the data lake storage Gen 2, to have a hierarchical namespace, you need to enable it at the first configuration. If you didn't enable it, it's impossible to enable. You will need to delete the storage account and create a new one. So as always, see the requirement because before creating your storage account. Okay, let's see the course. You can have some application that need that need course, which is an HTTP feature for the web application. So you can use for blob, you can use for file, you can use for queue and table, and you will just need to allow origins, the header, etc., etc. So basically, what advisor is, it will give you some recommendation about security, about cost, about performance, etc., etc. So it can be also interesting to see the advisor recommendation. So it's the same recommendation that you can see in Security Center. So you can have the inventory of all your endpoints. So, for example, for the blob service, for the file service, for the queue, for the table, for the data lake, and for your static websites. So, after you configure your storage account, it's interesting also to see what is what are your endpoint. Are they public or private?
Yep.
And last for the settings is the logs. So yes.
Oh no, sorry. So sorry to interrupt. So
No.
there are two questions that came in that I just thought I'll reach to you. So Michael asked a question. I believe that you addressed that earlier, but I'll go ahead and ask the question on behalf of Michael. So the
Mm-hmm.
question is: so talking of data being replicated three times within a region,
Mm-hmm.
is it in three different storage servers or three data centers, or what exactly does that mean?
I don't have the details of that. Unfortunately, I cannot answer to this question specifically if it's in different data centers because as I know, Microsoft to communicate only this option to and tell that it's three times, but three times in which container, in which data center, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And the next question is a question from Okpayemi. So Okpayemi is asking a question: do government bodies make use of cloud storage or private?
The
Do government bodies, the government organizations, I guess, do they make use of cloud storage or do they only use private storage?
I don't know, but the Azure public is different, totally different from Azure given government because they are separately, they are physically separated. So they are not on the same host. They are not on the same data centers,
Mhm.
as I know. So I guess there is no way to go public with that.
Yeah. And then final question for now, and then I'll let you carry on. So Satish asked, how do we restrict client access for NFS file shares?
For NFS file shares, you can either use manage identity, you can either use private endpoint. I don't know any other restriction. But if you it's the storage account is domain join, I think you can use the interface permissions to restrict your shared. So in fact, when you configure, for example, FS Logic for Windows Virtual Desktop, for example, the storage account is joined to a domain, and in the file share you can give some NTFS permissions to users. So
Awesome.
I guess I don't test it, but I guess you can do it for NFS file share.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Ibrahim. Let you carry on.
No problem. So the most important, now we have operational backup. It's less important, but um, to avoid the accidental deletion of the entire storage account, always put a resource lock. Now you can have two type of locks. You can have read-only locks. You have a delete lock. The delete lock will deny all the deletion operation, but the read-only lock will deny all the modification uh, some can do. In production environment, I will suggest or I will recommend to use the read only and use a change management process to be able to modify something inside the storage account if it is not used, for example, for an application that regularly change the data. If you use it with an application, go for delete. At least the someone cannot delete it by accident. So it's not specific to storage account. It's specific. I want to say all the services that you can that support management lock, and don't take it at the resource level. Go at least for the resource group level, because if you do it for the resource level, you will need to do it for example, if you have a 100 storage account, it can be difficult to apply lock one by one. So you either use the resource group if a resource group contain many storage account, or you go for the subscription level. In the subscription level, you will ensure that all the storage account in all the resource group will have a delete lock or read only lock. Okay, now for the monitoring side, you have insights. Um, so basically, inside you will have some workbooks that monitor the transaction by API. You can also see your availability, your use capacity, for example, the bandwidth, the success latency, the end-to-end server, and many more. You can see that you can customize your workbooks to add more specific queries. For example, you can pin your dashboard. Um, you can monitor for failures, for example, here. So you will see the failing transaction, the success, the client error, etc., etc. You can also monitor for the performance and so on.
Awesome.
Okay, you can have some graph. You can have by namespace the success end-to-end latency average. You can see it's for blob, it's for table, for file, for queue, and you have the client latency in millisecond that you can see all that stuff. You can have also the ability monitor availability based on the metrics.
Awesome. Yeah. So
So you
we,
can
we
see 100. Yes.
no, carry on, sorry. No, I just wanted to mention that we have probably like about 2 or 3 minutes to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do have a question, but I'll let you finish first and then we can ask the question at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't just want to show the availability option. So for example, if you have a problem of in your storage account, you can see here. You can also check the capacity, and you can also adjust the time range. So of course, you will not only monitor, but you will create some alerts. In case of, for example, your latency is high, your availability decreased, you have a problem to access a storage account, etc., etc. And you can use also the diagnostic settings, which is still in preview, um, for block queue table and file, and that's it. So I will finish with the automation, which can be interesting, even if you have no you have not many automation options. But for example, you can schedule automate a deletion for all the blob. For example, if you have a storage account with blob that have 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, but for this specific task, uh, personally, I recommend to use the lifecycle management policy to delete your blob and avoid some surprise. So for the automation, you can export your template with once you are sure that your blob is correctly configured. So you can also use some infrastructure as code, like a Terraform or another tools like Pulumi, etc., etc. But you need to know that you can export directly to JSON file the configuration of your storage account. I will finish with the support and troubleshooting. So always check the resource health. If you have some problem in the storage account, especially add a resource health alert that can generate an alert when there is an outage or a problem in Azure services. Use the connectivity check to see that there is no problem in one or more services, and recover your deleted account. You have 14 days to do that, and use operational backup if you want to have more restore points. And finally, use the support request if you have some advanced problems or etc., etc. So that's it.
That was amazing, Ibrahima. That was awesome, awesome, awesome. I learned a lot
Thank
from
you.
that presentation. That was super awesome. So just two more questions here. And then we'll round it up for today, just for tomorrow. So, Adi Ojogbo guy is asking a question. It says, since there is no way to specify customer managed keys at the time of creation of storage account, how can one do that that would not require management overhead? So, I guess the question is around.
In fact, it's not available because you don't create it before. But if it's a requirement, you need to have an HSM module, create your customer managed key, store it in the key vault, and once you have done that, you can simply use a customer managed key. But as you can see, I don't have nothing of that, so it will not appear.
Yeah, get it. And one other thing to mention to add to that for Adiojo is that I believe that you can also use Azure Policy. So I've not tested using Azure Policy to auto remediate customer managed keys because I've not tested that before. But I know that you can use Azure Policy to assess that, and after assessing it, you can test out some of the effects of Azure Policy. One of the effects is to modify if the configuration does not match, if you can use that. Otherwise, what you could do is that you could tie things like maybe if Azure Policy flags it as not compliant, maybe you tie that with an automation, workbook automation run job that's going to fix that for you. So, there's there's a lot of questions. If people wants to learn everything about Azure storage from you today. So, Okoyemi is asking a question: is there a method the insight can be monitored with an app? I'm not understanding that question. Maybe that makes sense to you, Ibrahima.
I don't understand it as well
Yeah,
with an
yeah,
app. So you mean you mean other than the insight? But what is the purpose?
yeah. Okoyemi, so if you
I
help,
don't.
yeah, yeah, Okoyemi, if you help us to clarify that, that would be great. So help us to
Yes.
clarify that. Yeah, okay. So let's go to the next question. So Michael is asking a question. As an enterprise administrator, if one wants to implement a storage server thing like on premises, and you want your users to be able to access storage for them to store their files, how do you implement that? How will they authenticate to the cloud storage? So I'm guessing. So carry on. Sorry, Ibrahima, you wanted to ask
So,
something.
simply you will join if it's a domain. You can simply join your storage to a domain, and the file share will leverage the NTFS permissions to access to be accessed. I
Yeah,
guess you. So you have either the Active Directory if it's a local it's on premise, or you can use also Azure Active Directory domain services if it's a cloud based.
mm,
But basically, the authentication with Active Directory is possible.
yeah. Awesome. So authentication with Active Directory is possible. And I
Yes.
see Adiojo is listening a nice solution that he puts together. So it says he used Azure Automation to run a PowerShell script with Logic App that runs every 5 minutes that check the storage accounts that are not using customer managed keys, essentially to fix the issue. If people have storage account that's not using customer managed key, he uses an Azure Automation
So
run book to do that.
I think it doesn't need to use Logic App. I think there is a policy for that.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
an Azure policy that you can use to assess it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. If I remember, I think I already see that somewhere, but I'm not sure.
So I think that if you search for customer managed in Azure policy, so customer managed, yeah, and there is a policy for that. You're right. Customer managed, and then there should be customer managed key for storage accounts. But the thing is, I've not tested how that would work for remediating that. So maybe
Yeah.
that's something that Adeojo you can probably test out, and maybe you do a presentation for us on that. So
Yes.
how that's going to work with maybe Azure policy detects that it's not compliant, and then maybe you tie that in with maybe just a logic app, or with just automation accounts to just remediate what Azure policy detects. Yeah.
Yes, I think I have seen Security Center, but I'm not sure. But the logic app it can be or either Azure function to do that. You can have many way to automate this verification.
Yeah, and I can see more clarification from Adio just so the policy doesn't change the Microsoft managed key. That makes sense. That makes sense to me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and then the logic app
Yes,
just
I
picks
think
up.
also there is not a remediation task. It's just a recommendation.
Yeah, I think so also. So Adioja, I think that what you've done is brilliant there. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Man, there's a lot of questions that we could carry on. Ibrahima, that was absolutely awesome. And say hello to the Azure architects that's saying I in the background. So the little engineer in the background that keeps talking, say hello to him or her. So tomorrow we'll continue again. So we have Ibrahima with us again tomorrow, and tomorrow will be about monitoring. So make sure you join us again tomorrow. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. So it's been an awesome session with Ibrahima. Thanks very much. And we'll see you tomorrow. Have a lovely, lovely evening, ladies and gentlemen, or morning or afternoon, wherever you're joining from. See you tomorrow. Ibrahima, you want to say bye to people?
Yeah, yes. I just want to tell you that it was really awesome. I'm really happy to share with you, and it's a great community. So I'm
It's a
really happy.
it's a pleasure to have
And
you too, sir. It's a
have a
pleasure.
lovely evening for all.
Thanks. Bye for now, everyone.